Mostly the 24 offsets. Hi, I'm George Crump, lead analyst with Storage Switzerland. Thank you for joining us today. Joining me today on the whiteboard is Ritu J2, Vice President of Product Management for Caminera Systems. Thanks for coming in today.
My pleasure, George. Thanks for having me here.
I know we're going to talk about consistency, and I think that's really important because one of the top things that we always talk to end users about is the importance of designing a very consistent environment that allows them to really scale out applications and be able to meet SLAs and things like that that you expect in the enterprise. Can you kind of walk us through this subject a little bit?
Absolutely. That's my favorite topic. So let's start with some background, what's happening in the enterprise data centers. So if you look into people buying a SAN storage, historically as well, right? And when people buy storage, SAN storage, to consolidate, simplify their whole operations, have one single structured backup and recovery procedures and not maintain so many different kind of things, virtualization has taken over and there's a lot of, consolidation happening. So you have databases and apps, being consolidated. There are various kind of workloads that is happening here, whether it is random, whether it is sequential, read, write. You can have online transaction processing. You could have analytics kind of a workload. You could have, virtualized VDI or databases,
right.
Virtual databases and, apps. Or you could have VDI workloads. And it's basically a whole kind of mixed workloads which are being consolidated, right?
Right, yeah.
And I'm aware of, a couple of, legacy arrays where, if you're consolidating different kind of applications, it completely breaks apart.
Right. Well, in many environments, you have to buy a different array for every single one of those apps.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And, that's not the best way to use your money, right?
Right.
So we, right from the get-go, we actually thought about how can we help the customers and design something which is optimized for mixed workloads.
Okay.
So let's do a quick recap of a K2 architecture. And as we talked about, we are a scale-out architecture. And scale-out, which actually has advantages for both IOPS and bandwidth. So if you have, we have multiple 8 gigabits per second fiber channel HBAs or 2 10 gig SCSI on each of these nodes. So by virtue of it being a scale-out, some of the workloads which are latency sensitive and have high IOPS needs. So we have an IOPS advantage because of our architecture. We have a bandwidth advantage because of our architecture. And we also have latency advantage. If you look into analytics, they're very bandwidth and throughput sensitive, right?
Sure.
So let me walk you through that why each one of these is unique in our case. So let's go with IOPS first. So first of all, since we have a scale-out architecture, we have multiple fiber channel SCSI connections, multiple CPU processors, we definitely have the scale-out benefit. But apart from that, we actually have our own internal proprietary, network connection between the nodes, and it is optimized for performance than the traditional just 10 gig SCSI.
Okay.
So we have the IOPS advantage. Now look at bandwidth. Of course, the scale-out definitely helps again, because you have multiple controllers here.
Sure.
The other distinct thing that we have done is that, we actually chose the 128K stripe size, which is best for higher bandwidth, right?
Yeah, you're right in big chunks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We write in 128K. And instead of, a lot of the other players, even the new breed, they actually break their stuff into 4K chunks.
Right.
Because of that, they're limited into 4K times the number of IOPS as the bandwidth.
Right.
Whereas what we do is that we have done the striping for 128K for performance. But then you may say that, what happens if you actually receive an IO which is just 4K in size?
Right.
Then we have the intelligence in that. In that case, we just write it in 4K chunks.
Okay.
In that case.
So you kind of shift modes.
Yes,
That's really smart.
So that is basically, we have the bandwidth advantage for the workloads that need that.
Right.
And in case if the IO is smaller than 128K, then we break them down into 4K chunks.
Okay.
Then let's talk about latency. Latency, of course, because of our internal proprietary optimized network, we have the advantage. But apart from that, remember, in scale-out, they typically have an extra network hop.
Right.
But we have done something very intelligent, and we have done this early act acknowledgement.
Okay.
And what it does is that as soon as we have one copy in the cache and one copy in the primary data service, we do the acknowledgement.
Okay.
And we don't do the extra network hop.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, we have IOPS advantage, we have bandwidth advantage, we have latency advantage for all kind of workloads, mixed workloads, whether it is, online transaction processing, analytics. Think about in a customer environment. A customer is running a sales order entry transaction, whereas some crazy marketing person, I'm sorry, is running a very intensive report, which needs a lot of analytics throughput. Both of them are dying to get their stuff done, and nobody wants to compromise. So consistency, both of them needs consistent performance and predictable performance.
Sure.
And last but not least, let me walk you through what our numbers look like right now, because we have a world record in this. So we actually scale from 200K to 2 million plus IOPS.
Okay.
We
actually did a write-up on the SpecFS.
Yes. And we do from 3 to 30 gigabytes per second in terms of bandwidth. And our latency is 280 microseconds for read, and we have 130 microseconds for write. And we actually have consistent low latency, even for higher workloads. So we have, consistency has been something very, very important for us, right? As you keep on consolidating different kind of workloads, and nobody knows, right? Which workload, which will take precedence at what time of the day and what time of the week, or monthly close, annual close. We actually have very consistent and predictable performance, and it's basically because of the optimizations in our architecture that was built right from the ground up for that.
Well, these are really impressive numbers, and then that consistency allows, what I like about consistency is it allows you to design right to the edge of the architecture, because you don't have to worry about headroom, because it's going to be always in a consistent state.
Yeah, you don't need to do any funky kind of short stroking or planning, provisioning. All that funkiness is not needed here. It's all automated, it's all self-managed. You just consolidate the applications, save money, and be assured that you have a consistent box.
And you can run to a very high level of utilization as well.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, George. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you, Bigger. Hi, this is George Crump, lead analyst with Store Switzerland. Thank you for tuning in.